So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mary Kay, if you could do roll call, please.
Angie Schreiber. Kristen Miller.
Here.
Andy Mary.
Here.
Jake Leiterman.
Here.
Dr. Julie Sprague.
Here.
And Dr. Dick Bardo.
Here.
Is there any public comments?
No.
All right, and we'll move on to new business. Angie Close is here to present the YMCA discussion.
Hi there.
Hi.
Do you want me to come down here?
Just, yeah, if you want us to have a seat at the table, that would be fine.
Thank you for allowing me to come on this agenda for tonight. We thought that would be very important. I know Jake has filled you in a little bit in regards to where we are.
I spoke with Angie, Driver, about they invited, the YMCA task force invited me to go to a meeting, so I asked her if I could go on behalf of the school district. And she said she thought that was a good idea, so I went, that must have been 3 weeks ago now. And just met with them and kind of more of a fact finding, what their thoughts are, what our thoughts are type of conversation, and just really kind of getting kicked off on the ground level of some sort of a community push to create a task force to get a YMCA in our community. So really the important thing from their stance and the YMCA task force stance is finding out what all people in the community think would be an asset to have involved at the YMCA. What things you think that community needs. So that's really where they're at with that. They wanted to come and speak with you guys a little bit more, to kind of tell a little bit more where they're at, what they've done so far, and how they plan to proceed. So, Angie agreed to come and speak
Absolutely.
with you guys on that. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, Jake. And just to give an overview, so this task force came about, if you know Joel and Jody Zalewski, they are avid pickleball players. And they really wanted to know where they could play pickleball in the winter and things, and they've had a very hard time of finding those spots. And so their passion was because they know of YMCA and pickleball over there. Then they started learning a little bit more about what the YMCA is and what would that do for a community like ours. So they're really spearheading this project. Our first meeting was a community meeting that was held in Covantage Credit Union. And Joel and Jody had invited some key players just to talk about that. And the hospital was there, the Boys and Girls Club, things in that nature were there in regards to what it would need to maybe look at a YMCA. Now, Brian Bailey is the director, and he is actually Anagonian. He is the director of the YMCA for this region, and he was willing to come and talk at that point. There was interest. There was definitely interest. We have talked about a community center here for quite some time. If you remember, there was a senior center discussion, and that came about. So we have these pockets, and this is what has happened. We have all these little pockets that are happening, and they're thinking, well, how do we bring maybe these pockets together and collaborate and look at these this resource as a YMCA resource. There has been some discussion way back when that there was a group looking to bring a YMCA, but at that time YMCA said, no, this community wouldn't probably be able to support this YMCA here. They have changed a lot of that in their own direction, the YMCA direction. They know that they're small communities, that they have to kind of adapt to that community, and what does that mean? So because that interest was there, we were able to take a tour, and we meaning a city, county, and economic development, and actually Tim Prunty came on this tour. So we were able to go over to the Wausau Woodson YMCA and take a tour, and it really opened our eyes to possibilities of what this could really look like here in Langley County. From that, we then did a city-county community meeting, or city-county leadership meeting. We have a city-county leadership meeting, like a monthly meeting as well. And so we brought it, Joel, when I say we, Joel is kind of the lead on that. So we brought it to that meeting just to get the buy-in from the county and the city and economic development to say, is this something that we would want to go forward with by creating a task force? And that meeting was very positive as well, and they said, yes, let's go ahead and do that. So then, hence the task force was formed. And that was the first meeting that Jake was then a part of for that task force meeting. There is, let me just read off the members. Brian Bailey, who is part of the Woodson, myself, Mark Desital, Jason Hilger, Tom Koss, Jake Leiterman, John Meadow, Judy Nagel, Tim Prunty, Sarah Rep, Dr. Julie Sprague, Jody Zalewski, and Joel Zalewski. Those were the contacts that we had as part of maybe being this task force. When we got together, we then came together and did a mission statement. And that mission statement is to determine the feasibility of YMCA here in Antigo. That is just what it is. It's to determine, is this feasible or not? So then we established a task force progress sheet so that each member can go out about and look at, talk with the groups. We established who the groups may be, and we were assigned to talk with those groups. And we have a list of assessing our community with those groups and talking that over. So that's where we're at right now. That current phase is just assessing our community needs to complete a list of facility and service needs along with potential YMCA partners. And that's where we're at. Our next phase, after we bring back this data, our next phase would be to prepare concept drawings, to kind of really look at, okay, these are the needs of these groups, this is what they're looking for, how do we bring that into concept, and then prepare those drawings, and then go from there. But that's where we're at. I did send out that information in your packets. There were also 2 videos. If you haven't had a chance to watch them, I mean, I'm more than happy to show them tonight, but they are on the YMCA YouTube channel from the Woodson YMCA. They're very, very good videos. I would really encourage you to watch them. It brings about how the landing was brought to the YMCA. The landing is their senior center portion of YMCA, so it's just very heartwarming, and knowing that we have a great senior center right now that has been going very, very good. I think that was a great story in itself, but how can we then talk with them as well, and what are some of the other needs that they may have? And those are the conversations that we're having out and about right now. So if you have a chance, go ahead and view that video. Our task force is open to any questions. We feel that we want to make sure the school district is a big part of that. As far as getting the information out and sharing that and getting what the needs are here as well, to bring that back into that concept. So that's where we're at.
Angie, can you just speak a little bit about conversation you've had with the Boys and Girls Club and how the relationship works?
Read my mind. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jake.
so I have not been with the total conversations right now. I know that they have some meetings. There are some concerns from the Boys and Girls Club because of the fact of the big thing with YMCA is all about the fund drive, right? So there's a funding drive or a capital campaign drive that the YMCA does once a year. And the biggest concern is because of our limited resources that we do have here, what would that look like, and how would that then maybe impact our Boys and Girls Clubs and things of that nature? And those are still conversations that are still being had. We want to make sure that those are all talked about, because that's not the goal. That is not the goal. It's to enhance. It's to fill the gaps that are already, or that are not being met at this point. That is the whole goal of this whole project. So I think those conversations, that's exactly what we need. We need the pros and the cons. What would this do? Is this feasible? in order to bring that forward. So that's kind of where we're at with the Boys and Girls Club right
But
now.
overall, they're open.
Yes, they have been very open. At first, I know there was a conversation that was held with the Rhinelander YMCA because of the Boys and Girls Club going to the Northwoods. They have now that Rhinelander and they didn't have a good experience with the Rhinelander YMCA, and so there was some pushback there. And I believe Angel was very forthcoming on that and talked with Brian Bailey, and they have had these conversations. So, and there's still conversations to be had. We know that their facility needs at the Boys and Girls Club, they've outgrown them. And so they're doing their push and they're going forward with their capital campaign. And we do not want to be anywhere, any way saying that would be ever neglected, because we know that that's important to our community. We know how great the Boys and Girls Club is. We just want to see what the gap is that we could help fill with the YMCA.
So there's lots of things in Antigo that fulfill the function of what I think of as YMCA. So we have a pool. YMCA is usually a pool. We have the WellFit, which YMCA's usually have fitness stuff, and there's the senior center that you mentioned. And so would these all be part of the YMCA somehow, or would the YMCA build a new facility?
These are all conversations that need to be had that we're still working out, because we know that there's those different, I don't want to say, I always call them silos, but they're not. They're part of our community. They fulfilled a need at the time that there was a need, and so this WellFit Center came. The hospital filled that need. You know, the Boys and Girls Club, they filled this need. The Senior Center, they filled that need. So there's just these packets that are all over, but what else is there that we could collaborate and bring together? So I don't know what that would look like. I know the conversations have been, and I can maybe go back to Jake in regards to, there's still a conversation in regards to the aquatic center. I know that, you know, where they could build, maybe possibly could be here, I don't know for sure, in regards to what that would definitely look like, but I know other YMCA's manage their aquatic centers at other schools or other places where they could, instead of, I don't think they would ever want to rebuild that. I mean, that is something that doesn't make sense, you know, especially in our community, that would not make sense. It's how do you take advantage of what we have, and how can the YMCA work together to help that even sustain further and grow more.
Yeah, our aquatic center is great for our community, so we want to take advantage of that. We don't want to have two aquatic centers.
Right.
So the thought would be somehow find a way to meet the YMCA with the school district and use that aquatic center facility for both, if possible, is a thought.
Yeah.
Certainly just a thought at this point, definitely no further than that.
Yeah, well, I think WellFit's kind of the same thing, though. They fulfill something for Ango here. There was a WellFit this morning. I was impressed how many people have come back in now that we think COVID's over. But the one thing, you know, Antigo's really lacking, and our school district is lacking, is gym space, court space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the big things on my list to do, I wanted to talk with you as a committee first, but, you know, I went to that task force meeting. They brought up, you know, all the booster clubs in our community, you know, they're only looking for more gym time, more this, more that, more everything. So that was another benefit, that if we could find a way to get it located close to the high school here, utilize the aquatic center, provide some more space that our booster club and our organized sports teams could take advantage of, that would be a win-win. So,
If I could just add to.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things we talked about, Jerry Rice came to the board a couple years ago and got formally requested to do fundraising. You know, going back to 2002, when we started raising money for the aquatic center, there was supposed to be a gymnasium and a connection to the high school. So then Jerry came to the board and said, hey, now is the time, can we look at that? And so we had Bray Architects We actually paid them to do an assessment, needs assessment, and come up with additional schematic drawings on what that would look like. So when Joel Zalewski approached myself, other members of the committee are on, like Sarah Rupp, for example, who's in Park and Recs, serves on the Aquatic Center board. So Sarah was aware of the activity. And together, it only makes sense if to explore an option where we need additional gym space and making the connection to the building. We've already done a fair amount of legwork. Is this an avenue that we should go down, or isn't it an avenue we should go down? And so that's the balancing act we're looking at. And then Julie's got concerns too, which you're all aware of as well. When you look at our elementary facilities, should we be promoting the Y versus promoting our own space needs at elementary schools?
So as what he's referencing is, as the superintendent, I've attended one meeting. I was very happy to go and hear, and I found myself getting excited about the fundraising. And then when I went back to work, it really didn't sit right with me. I thought, why would my time and energy be put towards this great community cause when I am personally and professionally really discontent with our elementary schools? So again, only attended one meeting, but I did have a conversation with President Pyatt at his, he's the one that approached me, and I know he's thinking too about the elementary schools that happened at orientation and just what he saw when he went and the staff feedback. So I haven't shared that cognitive struggle I'm having with anyone outside my team except for this group here tonight. But I'm happy for the district to support this because it's great for the community. But I would not be doing my job if I didn't also look at ways it could benefit us as a district. So that's where I'm at.
I guess I look at Antigo and think, oh, we got some of these things. We've got the senior center, we've got the pool, we've got WellFit. What we don't have is that court space. Should we be building a Hodag dome? I don't know. Tim, I know you've been to the Hodag dome, and
No.
Jake, yes? You should go, boys.
No, we shouldn't build a dome. We should build a building.
Yeah, but from a community standpoint, that brings in a lot of money for their community because they host tournaments there of different kinds, and so it's a big thing. And I understand when you're saying, the dome's not the thing to build, but perhaps some other structure that focuses on that. And for Antigo, is it that thing at the pool, which would have courts and be for gymnastics, wrestling, but would also be for pickleball?
Right, because we talk with teachers, why do they want to come to Antigo? This would create something for that not quite senior center. My question is, is there a daycare possibility?
And that's where I was going to say in regards to that needs, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of what we've heard from feedback is that daycare piece and about having that opportunity to go to someplace like a WellFit so that I can, as a parent, take my kid there for an hour or so I can go work out. And that's what the Y brings. There's a lot of things that brings with that membership, that portion of that's a big need that we have
Right.
seen. And that WellFit and other fitness center type facilities do not provide, or our daycare. So
Yeah.
there are some things that way that have come up that as an attraction and a retention piece, that if we had a Y, those are some things that have come up in different conversations. So I think there's still there, I think, as we talk, and this is what we're doing, these community needs analysis, so that we can put this all down to see exactly what is feasible. Is it just this building that we're talking about now, and then is it something else? I think the more information that we get through these community conversations and these partner conversations, the more information that we'll know which direction the community needs to go.
You
But
know,
I really do believe that part is a big part of an attraction and a retention piece.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
know Wellfit is geared to, one of the things they have there is the court, and part of the reason they have that is so parents can come and the kids can play basketball or whatever, but they don't have daycare for the
No,
kids.
and what I've heard from the WellFit end of things, it's not real feasible for that to happen.
A daycare.
No, for just even the court and different things and the way that it's set up, it's just not as, I've heard that conversation as well.
I've seen a lot of kids there
Sure,
that come with their parents.
okay.
and
But I'm just
take
saying
them
that
to-
there's probably some reasons behind each one, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But not the daycare they can't do.
Right. And, you think of a YMCA like in Wausau, I assume they have several full-size basketball courts, right?
They have it was amazing what they all have in there, but of course, it's, again, the YMCA themselves had said to us in regards to our conversation, it would be based on the community needs. We don't have to go all out what they did, but what is it that we're needing? And those are the things that could come about. But these are great conversations. This is exactly what we need in order to make a decision to whether or not you go forward to the next phase, and that's exactly how we need to continue these conversations and get that all together.
Have we done a feasibility study for us, like a sports arena versus just the sports arena versus the YMCA?
I think there was the only needs assessment that was done through Jerry.
Yeah, so at that time, we looked at places like Wisconsin Rapids put up a new facility. And so we did a needs assessment just district-wide. So we reached out to each one of the booster clubs and brought them in, brought the PE department in. Those were the primary concerns. So we looked at every sport, how do we reconfigure what we have, including the weight room here, the wrestling facility here, how we're doing gymnastics, and looked at that specifically, what could we do?
And that's what generated the link between the high school and aquatic center now
Okay.
and years ago.
So we just looked at what we as a district,
Yeah, we
Could utilize-
have
we
not
didn't-
done a community assessment in regards to
Right.
sporting, just as the district itself.
right, because like Andy said, that could be a huge revenue generator for our area, if we were to host tournaments and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Hode, would you imagine that they're going to generate a huge heating bill this winter?
I think everybody's gonna.
Because I forget what the number was when we were up, and they told us it was like 20,000 a month or something.
But they're not the only ones building it. Like I look at West Appear. West Appear put up and again, these are very affluent districts doing it. They put up a facility that almost, I wouldn't say it's equivalent to the Don Hudson Center, but it's nothing to sneeze at. It's
Mhm.
huge. You can kick a football.
So it's not a dome, it's a
It's a structure.
it's a structure.
But there's, half again as much money in the structure too.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are the most, if you were building a new school, the gym is the most expensive thing, right? Just because you have to
Yeah, when you
span.
look at it by square foot, yes.
Yeah.
But this is the assessing the community needs based on the information provided for the YMCA. So I think by just getting this out, I think the facility conversation would be great as well. And I think we're going to get more of that when we talk to, again, all of the people that we have, the clubs and the organizations and all the booster clubs. I think all that information will come back. And then you can kind of know exactly where that direction is.
Right, and that's kind of always the cart before the horse type,
Sure.
if we don't come to you until we have all that figured out, you're like, what are we talking about? Why didn't you talk to us sooner? And if we come before, then you got a ton of questions. So, yes, that's the end goal, is to have some sort of, what they call it, feasibility study or needs analysis or some better grasp with all the people having their voice at the table and look at what that's gonna look like. And, you know, the YMCA has done this in lots of communities, so they have a lot of program type things that can give us some of that data based on like demographics and stuff like that. So it's all in the works, it's just not completed yet.
And a lot of those questions are, what are your short-term facility needs? What are your long-term facility needs? Things of that nature, just so that we can kind of see what that's going to look like. I mean, those are some of the questions that we make sure that we ask every group that we're talking to.
Is there a community that has, I guess, merged both? Had YMCA part of a larger facility that could hold tournaments and stuff like that, but wasn't necessarily deemed the YMCA, but it was like somehow attached to it?
I'm not quite sure about that. I know the YMCA does a lot of different things where they'll manage different facilities depending on exactly what the community needs are. But I'm not sure if that is, that's something that we can ask Brian Bailey on that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good question to ask, because I understand that we want, address community needs, but we also want to look forward to the future and try to bring in money and try to bring in people that want to be here.
And that's
I know
where
that you know that.
Yeah, and I know that's where, like, part of the conversations with YMCA, just because of the branding and what it is, it's an attraction piece in
Yep.
regards to how that goes, but
Yeah.
absolutely.
Maybe you could answer this one. Like if we look at, we go over to Marinette, and you look at what they just recently built, that's probably gonna be, I don't know if that's private nonprofit, if that's run by the city.
I don't know how that's I don't know how it's covered.
Yeah, but it's not affiliated with the Y, and they have an ice arena, they have some tennis courts, they have swimming pool, they have it all.
Right. I think having the Y is a great idea, but I also think having the other,
Right.
side of it too would be awesome.
Are YMCA's ever connected to school districts?
Yeah, the example I used, Mosinee, probably been doing it with the Y for probably 15 years or more.
I mean, they share facility, the Y part of the building?
So at Mosinee, what they do is they actually manage their aquatic center, and then they manage their park and rec as well.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how much they would have with their fitness center, but I know they have an agreement to run their pool, and they do the park and rec there.
Do they have after-school programs for youth? I believe they do, correct? Okay. So would this would be in direct competition with the Boys and Girls Club then?
Well, and before you came.
Sorry,
so-
I
No,
apologize for
that's
being late,
okay.
yeah.
No, and those are the conversations, it's not direct competition, and Angel's well aware of everything that's happening. It would be what could complement each other. What
Okay.
are some of the things maybe that are missing that maybe could complement it? Those are the conversations that are being had right now.
Sure,
So,
okay.
And actually discussed the club not having enough space. So is it something that, should the needs assessment suggest like a super facility then where the club would become part of it? I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, the club might become part of it, but also the school district, we could really use more gym space. And
And
so,
elementary schools.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, because if the middle school, they can't even use the one multi-purpose, whichever one they don't use because they're eating lunch there. So if they could somehow.
And that's the same
Gym
in every
class. Right,
elementary,
yeah.
the gym is everything. The lunchroom and 2 of the 3, the music area, sometimes art, it's just,
yeah, and really, every coach would like to be using the gym right after school as opposed to 4 hours later.
And parents, I'm sure.
Right.
Well, and, when we closed the rural elementaries, one of the things that there were groups that used the rural elementary gyms, and that hasn't worked out so well when there's only the city.
well, I've not been
Right.
privy to any requests, but that could be because of COVID too.
Yeah.
Nobody was using our facilities. But I know just having gone to Spring Valley, and I know that one is used for
Yes.
adult volleyball and things.
Yeah. you know, people usually might have reached the age where.
They're
well, the
no
school
longer
closing, we're done too.
Time.
This time, right. But all great questions, and I definitely will bring it back to the task force at our next meeting and just let them know that, you know, some of these things that had come up during our conversations. But I just wanted to share exactly where we're at. If you hear it out and about, please have them contact me or Joel in regards to that, so we want to make sure everything is communicated. We want to make sure everybody's getting the same message. We want to make sure that that is, you know, not, the same message. Let's just say it that way, right? So that's why we're all taking these types of turns to go around and talk to the groups and get that.
I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that you're working on this, Angie, because I know you got a good pulse of the community here, and you realize that, you know, it's not so affluent. There's only so much money to go around.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we want to make the best use of that money for
Absolutely.
everybody, not just
We
some
have limited
groups.
resources that we have to make sure that we're using to the best of our capability and to support what we need to do in order to grow, in order to retain and attract.
So, yeah.
So the
Okay.
other thing would be for transport then, if
Correct.
that's,
Yeah.
I'm sure someone brought it up, but if everyone thinks someone brought it up, then.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That is on our second phase for transportation.
So, and I apologize if you've already answered
It's
this.
okay.
So so you're just in the preliminary stages? Have you looked at any funding mechanisms? No.
No,
Okay.
because that, unless, I shouldn't say no, because if there are some grants that, one thing that had come up, it was because of Park Falls, is just recently was awarded a grant for YMCA, and that was through the workers, it was through the neighborhood investment grant that Governor Tony Evers had put together, and they did apply for that in order to bring a YMCA there.
Okay.
So, and it was pretty substantial. I think it was like a $6.6 million grant, bless you, if I'm not mistaken. But because that was just a one-time grant opportunity, that's something that, it was just a one-time. The city applied for it, the county applied for it for different projects, and it was not awarded. But we are continuing to look if there's possibilities that this could be for either feasibilities or anything that could look into. We are keeping apprised of the grants.
And that grant was through,
That one was the neighborhood investment grant.
Okay.
That was through the Badger Bounce Back program that Governor Evers had put together. And it
Okay.
continues to utilize those ARPA dollars in order to put those grant dollars together. There's different programs that come up all the time. But that one was back in the, oh my goodness, it's already been almost, I can't remember. Yeah, well, it's been about a year for sure for that one, coming up on a year for the application.
okay.
The last 2 years have been crazy with all of that. For sure.
If I come across any grants,
Yeah, that'd be
then
great.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other questions or anything else that I missed?
No, you got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
Thanks,
Jake,
Angie.
thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you.
All right.
Hand it back over to you.
Yeah, again, I'm so sorry for being late. I had a plumbing emergency with the apartment that, yeah, anyways, it's Monday. Okay, so we're on to the snowplow bids then.
Yep, so, we do a 3-year bid cycle for this. So this was our year that it was up. In the past, we've had, typically the only two that have been able to, I guess, meet our requirements as far as size of equipment and number of equipment to do what we need to, has been Stevie Excavating and then Krieger and Steinfest. Since Debbie's moved out, I've really tried to talk to other people within the community to try and see what their interest is in or their capabilities are of doing this for us, and they just don't quite have enough to do everything, so unfortunately, we only ended up with one bid 3 years ago and again this year now, so we're happy that Krieger Steinfest is willing to do it. But it'd be nice if there was a little more competition there, but they do a great job, don't have any problems with them. Very easy to work with, love having them. And when I looked back at the bid from this year to 3 years ago, there's a few categories that went up and a few categories that went down, so, you know, it makes me feel confident that they're actually looking at it and really being honest about what their prices are, and they're not just taking advantage, knowing that they're the only ones that are here. So I appreciate them taking care of us. They do a great job.
Do they always have salt in there at market price in past contracts?
They did the last year too, and to my knowledge, Tim, do you remember, I think they used to bid it, but when the last one came up, it was right after salt went crazy that one year.
Yeah, they've been, I bet you it's over 10 years it's been
Okay.
market price.
Okay. So,
Just one question regarding the drive, I guess, the parking lot drive. I see that there's a couple of potholes that are coming back, if you will.
Sure.
Are those any way going to be taken care of before the snow falls, or are we going to let them kind of grow in size?
we will try and take care of them again, but
Yeah.
the condition, they peel out, they don't
Sure,
hold, I mean, I have the county come in and do the patching, and I have them get hot mix. So that was the delay this spring, because I really like them to use the hot mix and roller versus just a cold patch. But either way, those patches just don't
sure,
last there.
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll try to get them touched up again here before frost hits, but.
yeah, because, I mean,
It's
you know what,
I know.
yeah, how bad it was last
Oh,
spring.
kids need to learn how to drive on potholes.
Right.
They may as well do it there.
It was so bad, there was no
Keeps
missing
their
those.
kid focused on the road.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, joking aside, yeah.
yeah,
We try to stay ahead of them, but yeah,
okay,
it's continuously getting worse, so.
okay. Is there a possibility of even like filling them in with, like some, like a alternative, like gravel, for
At
example?
times we use gravel,
Yeah,
but that doesn't, I mean, one rainstorm and it gets soft and pushes out. And
sure,
so, I mean, it's pretty temporary, but we
okay,
do at times use gravel. There's
Okay.
some right now that have gravel in.
yep,
When's that parking lot on the Central to be redone?
10 years ago?
Okay.
No, yeah, I put some budget, I have it pulled up, but, I did some budget numbers last year for it through Northeast Asphalt, helped me do some conceptual estimates, and it's quite extensive, getting
Yeah.
or better. Because the concrete curbing, sidewalk, asphalt, the whole thing with the storm sewers, there's been a lot of catch basins that we've had to dig up and fix. They're just deteriorating and falling apart. And it's gonna be a big
Okay.
ticket item. I have a company coming in. I tried to get them in the spring when it was still cold, but they do, they charge like $500 to come in, and they fly this drone, and they can do a number of different things that they shoot with this drone. The main things that I'm interested in are, they can do a full hardscape evaluation, and that's what the engineers and contractors can use to work off of then, instead of having to try and come and measure everything. So once we get that file, we can use that. But it also does, for like heat, it does a heat reading. So it can identify if there's any major heat losses in our building roofs and structures and stuff like that. So, I'm gonna have them come in this fall, but the trick is to get the heat in the parking lot, you need no snow, but you need cold. So you gotta get,
Could happen.
yeah, you can, but
What are
everybody
they doing
probably.
Saturday?
So, like I said, I tried to get him in here at the right time in the spring, and it didn't work with his schedule and my schedule, but, because the parking lot's gotta be empty as well, so, things like that, so.
okay,
But it's definitely on the list, it's just a huge ticket.
sure. And have we had any other companies look at, not that we're at the bidding phase, but like give kind of a rough estimate? other than
No,
Northeast?
No, not until we,
Okay.
I just talked to them as far as, come in and look, this is the type of curb and
Sure.
gutter, sidewalk, what is some square foot pricing, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, at least gets you in the ballpark.
Sure. Yeah, so you need something to put in the budget.
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, it changes all the time, and, if you get a small portion or a large portion, that's gonna change your square foot pricing too, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, as soon as we get an extra $1 million, let me know and we can get it on the schedule.
You gotta request it. and we'll think about getting it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd like to move the snowball bids forward, if that's
Okay.
okay. The next one is the building grade configuration. This is something that Angie and I talked about a little bit before last month's meeting, which I apologize I wasn't here for. And I understand that you guys talked a little bit about it at last month's meeting.
Yes.
What this proposal does is, every building is a little different, and every grade has a little bit different needs. As the age changes, so do their needs, so do the building requirements to help support them. So to do just the easy, each kid needs 10 square feet type of number isn't very accurate. And, the discussions that we had were, if we're gonna do something, we better be accurate on this. We can't afford to be wrong. So that's when it came into discussions that maybe we need to have someone do a assessment of our buildings with the ideas of, the grade structure that you guys have asked about, what that would look like in our current buildings and how we could most efficiently use our buildings. So that's what I had asked Bray to put together. So I guess
What was the grade structure?
what did you have, K1?
Yeah.
Or
4K,
4K.
5K, 1, 2, 3,
Thank you.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
4K, 5K,
Yeah,
then 1, 2, then 3, 4. And then the middle school will go back to 5 through 8. And high school will go back to 9 to 12.
uh-huh. So, I just had a discussion with one of the teachers, a specials teacher who left our district, and he told me, yeah, I'm in this new district and I really like it because I got my own room. And so when we look at reconfiguring here, we should be looking at not just we need X number of first grade classrooms, we need X number of first grade classrooms and a music room and a library and I know you told me that we have the extra 4K class and it took the nice library Tom Zamzow had put in.
Gone, yep.
Gone. And, so if we're gonna reconfigure, why aren't we doing 4K 2 and moving third grade to the middle school and seventh grade to the high school? I mean, that's another way to reconfigure. It frees up more rooms in the elementaries. Because,
Can you say that again?
you can do art on a cart and you can do music on a cart. When you start doing Title I things with special groups, it'd be nice to have someplace other than the principal's office or something like that.
Well, what we did, and I
Say
don't
those
have,
again, Andy.
Yeah, if you could say what you.
I got 7,
4K
12.
through 2,
Four-
move
4K
3
to
to middle
2.
school.
Okay,
And 3
3 to 6,
6.
yeah.
And I have no idea if seventh grade fits in the high school.
It's another idea, though. It's
Yeah,
Ideas are good.
yeah.
and I would say not right now, of course, but also their inquiry last meeting about the 4KK 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We couldn't add a grade level to our current 3 buildings. There's hardly enough space now, and by adding that grade level, we knew for the foreseeable future that wasn't an option. But
Well, I'm sure Jake will like my next idea, but, for a while, we had the Resch Center at West.
Sure did.
And so, you can add on to all these buildings that way.
That's an option.
Does that distribution address the showing improvement for the,
So that's what I investigated. I'm glad you brought that up. So one of the pieces that has concerned me, and then thereby the board and their teachers and principals, is that at the elementary school, we can't earn a growth score, or show a growth score, because we end at grade 3. DPI helped me find other districts with that 4K through 3 configuration. And they are Altoona, Amory, right in Mosinee, who knew, a neighbor, Nakusa, Watoma, to name a few. And their report cards, for the most part, are very good without that growth score, some even exceeding expectations. So what I next asked DPI is, can a district go without that growth score from where we are at to, you know, make those improvements mathematically from one year to the next? Can that be done without a growth score? And lo and behold, it can. Here's the printout. So, I should have brought some cheaters with me. Altoona, Beloit has a number of schools who were failing to meet expectations and then met them the following year. Beloit must have 6 elementaries that are configured like ours. Genoa City, Glendale River, Grantsburg, Lake Geneva, Milton, Mosinee on here, Rosedale, Brandon, Royal, and St. Francis, and again, Watoma. So my point in sharing that with you is, while I wish we had a growth score, we cannot use that as our excuse, if you will, that we aren't achieving where we want to be.
So I don't fully understand the growth score. So you're saying there are schools that exceed expectations without a growth score?
Yes, yes, because achievement counts as, I would have to find it, but up to 75% between attendance, achievement, which at the elementary is that one test. And that does give me angst. I don't like that, but that's the way the system works, so. And DPI said, as long as you're all held, you know, to the same standard, the same system, then, you know, a growth score can't more negatively impact us than it would those other districts.
Mhm.
So,
but it could be beneficial.
it could.
So those other districts, do they have the same configuration that we have now or that we're looking at?
That we have now, 4K through 3.
Okay.
Did you look to see if there was any of the ones we were looking at? I looked at a couple districts and didn't have any success, but I didn't go crazy either.
Well, I talked like the Rhinelander directly because they used to stop at grade 3, and at this last meeting, I couldn't remember exactly what the former SOUP had shared. So the current SOUP, Eric Burke, said that they moved away, but it wasn't just that growth score. The board decided they wanted all 4K through grade 5 back in their elementary schools. That was primary. They didn't like the frequent transitions, and then the growth was just like a bonus, but that was not the primary factor. I knew it had happened as soon as we consolidated there at the same time, but I wasn't sure of the why.
So I think one thing that you realize with Bray's proposal, that the way they do this is come in and have discussion with, you know, Julie and the administration team, but also the board, if you'd like, on what your goals are. They're not just gonna sit in their office and, you know, they're gonna come here, talk with us, figure out what we're actually looking at, talk through some some options and then put some numbers to it. You know, they're gonna look at this pretty in-depth and comprehensively. It's not just a quick calculation based off my discussion with them. It's gonna be more interactive, so,
Sure.
you know, the different configurations, you know, you can explain your thoughts and your whys to them, and they can maybe even come up with some guiding thoughts on past experiences that they have had with other districts. I mean, they do this all the time. You know, they look at this so that they'll have a lot of knowledge that they can bring to the table to help talk through some of these options and figure out.
I think that's what we need to decide is what is our goal? Like, what problem are we trying to fix by doing this? Yes, we don't have enough room, but is it to create the room for the specials? Is it to open the gym space? Is it to help with behavior? Is it to have teacher consolidation or time? What is our goal? What do we think we're going to achieve by doing the change?
All those things would be nice to improve. Those
It
are all
would.
things we.
Is this going to help those things?
Well, and I guess,
They will look at our buildings and they will look at educational norms today, I guess, if you would. You know, when you talk about a counselor that's sitting in a coat closet, those types of things are not a norm. So they're not going to assess our buildings as using that coat closet as an office. They're gonna look at our buildings for what they should be used for.
Right.
And assess them that way.
and I guess I was thinking, they would tell us, if we need to move walls around, and expand rooms, because there's all different ways that you can utilize the space, kind of like when somebody remodels a home.
Is it hard to move walls in these elementary buildings? Yeah.
Yeah.
We did it in middle school, right?
Yep.
In some cases.
Yep, yeah, there's some things we can do, but there's also some limitations we
Yeah.
gotta make sure we stay.
That's with every structure.
And that was the premise I operate from with our elementaries, is that they are not at a point where they can be updated.
Right, when you look back at the C10 facility study, that whole overview of that study was, what is that gonna take to bring them up to what standards were in 1960? That wasn't what it is to take them up to that 2014 when that study was done. That was just to bring them up to the standards at which they were built.
Yeah.
When you start looking at how we teach today versus 1960, it's much different.
I was reading an article and it was about, I forget what the district was, but they were creating spaces in their building because there's so many mental health issues now. Just creating spaces where kids would have this space.
Like a soft landing or
Yeah, where they would go, but to do that, you gotta have a space where you can create that. And, I think the point there is that education, what we're dealing with today, we didn't deal with 10 years ago. And what we dealt with 10 years ago, we didn't deal with 10 years before that, and it's always evolving. And I know when we were looking at building new school, one of the things we looked at was the domes in Johnson Creek.
Okay.
And those were built, just a big dome, and then all walls inside are movable. And all the electricity's in the floor, all the outlets and everything, no matter how you set the room up, you would have all the stuff you need. But the idea was that, what's good today isn't gonna be good 10 years from now. And so, if we're gonna reconfigure, we ought to think about, are we leaving ourselves options to change things without, because right now in the elementaries, we're just kind of crammed in there, right?
And if we had an option to add on, I think at least I would have been proposing that
To add on
years
to
ago, yeah.
one or
Why-
more of the elementary.
Why is that not an option?
Money.
Well, money is one. When you look at a facility like North, we're pretty well landlocked there. that's a tough building when you look at adding on and taking recess, playground space, how you configure that, you know, if you're familiar with how that building sits. How do the hallways fall, you know, you could really only build to the north. We don't have much room to the north there at all, on that end of the building, you know, north of the gym. They already put an addition on there and we're up to that lot line. If you wanna add on to the main building to the north, that's behind classrooms, so that's adding another hallway, that's a pretty substantial add if you're gonna go that direction with it.
What about going up?
I don't think that we've ever explored the structural ability to build a second floor on top of that structure.
I mean, that might be something, for us, you know, just looking into to see.
Yeah,
Isn't it west, if you wanted to build on to somewhere, west would be the place?
west would be the best location, yeah. You know, cause likewise at east, we do have some room.
Sure, you have more room to grow.
To the
yeah.
east, yes, to the east of that building, but again, there's such little hardscape there, you know, when we did the consolidation and did a lot of the community you know, people are very hesitant at the small playgrounds that we have as it is. Now to make them even smaller, you know, that's very, very concerning from what I heard at those meetings. I know, Andy, you were involved in
Yeah.
those.
Didn't we buy up a couple of extra lots here at West, or are they really useful when it comes to building on or?
Since
creating
I've been
more
here, we
or
bought,
playground?
we bought one lot next to, that's actually attached to the football field to
That's what
now.
And there's one on the east side
There's
too.
one, yep, that was bought 10 years ago, Tim. That connects west, or connects the football field property to that road.
Well, I mean, if we get, hypothetically speaking, if we ever got the sports facility, then possibly we can move Schofield Stadium to there.
Just pick it up.
Just pick up and just kind of, you know, shuffle it down the road and,
Well, I don't know, that's tradition, and you're messing with tradition.
Yeah, that would be something,
That's-
an uproar.
Hey, anything's possible, but that's been a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts, so. Yeah, I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
Physically could, but,
but, I mean, the community has voiced their opinion very strongly against building a new school. So we have to figure out how to make it work within what we have. So, and if that means we're expanding west, then that would give us the most room and be able to add the most, you know, facilities that could be used.
I feel if the community gets behind the YMCA project, that's the time to strike. Do it together.
For what?
Our elementary grades. Build on that momentum.
So build them together,
Mhm.
yeah.
So build a new school is what you're presenting?
Connected to senior center, a community complex.
I guess that would have been, maybe it's a question for Tim, but maybe we should have addressed it to Angie too, is, you know, could you run a referendum that would build both a school and YMCA?
How many times has the referendum been ran for a new school and failed?
Several?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so,
We have a declining enrollment, so I myself as a taxpayer, yeah, you know, shiny and is great and wonderful, but as myself as a taxpayer, I can't justify that. I can't. Do I like the older schools? No, but I think we can.
I'm interested in that because you seemed really excited about the YMCA.
No, I was just asking questions.
Oh, I thought, like moving Schofield Stadium, I thought.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, if you take out, you know, emotions and traditions like that, it would make sense to move that to a
high
sports
school.
facility. You know, if we were able to get a sports facility, move that to there, and then we could host, you know, the tournaments and stuff like that, which would also help generate income or revenue to the, you know, to the county, to the city and stuff like that, versus just strictly thinking for, just the district.
That's what, yeah, I like the idea of them together, and I do believe that as long as we have those three, I said it last time, we'll continue to watch waiting lists at All Saints and Peace. We can't compete with their facilities at that level, and that breaks my heart. That's backwards.
And Andy, you know, you have a good idea there. Think about, in a lot of ways, Schofield Stadium should be over at the high school. Simply because you'd use those better lockers. I mean, we built new locker rooms for our team, but the visitors use the old locker rooms.
And I don't know the history of how it got to be in that specific location, so.
And there would be other, you know, like, my kids were in band, we went to marching band competitions. You go to other places, they're set up where, yeah, gotta park 20 buses, yeah, we can do that. Gotta have all these people, you gotta have these nice grandstands, all these facilities, yeah. You know,
Yeah,
they've
that's-
had little competitions here at Schofield, but it's hard.
Yeah,
There's a place for the buses, there's no facilities, you know, like locker room type things.
sure.
You go somewhere else and, you know, there's the football field, here's the gymnasium where each band has a portion of the area to be.
Yeah, I think a sports, I don't know if you want to call it arena, some kind of, you know, sporting dome, whatever you want to call it, it would be a fantastic idea. So, and if it could be tied into the YMCA, I think that'd be even better, and then we could build on to West and try to alleviate some of the crowding.
And, yeah.
Julia, my question, so you've made very clear you want a new elementary school. We are aware that there's declining enrollment, so why would the focus not be on making this building accessible for all grades?
For all
Instead
groups.
of starting a brand, because in a few years, whatever that year is, a new elementary school would mean nothing because we will all fit in one building.
In the high
That's
school.
where we're headed. This is our newest building, so why can't, and we have land here, some, why are we not looking at just expanding this building to encompass everything?
That's a good question. I remember the ask at last meeting, how long will it be
Right.
before we can all of our students fit in here? So,
Take a stab at that?
please bail me out, yes.
Keeping track. So, it really boils down to, we have been very sensitive, tried to be very sensitive about the cost of a building. And when you look at the cost of square footage, whether that be renovation or that be new construction, there's a balancing act. And so if we look at older buildings and then bringing them up to code and then adding on, that's a certain cost. So we've looked at every configuration, and we actually looked at saying, okay, what if we went down to 2 buildings? What would that look like? So we know that when you look at the 1998 addition to the middle school, there was a fair amount, a significant improvement made into that building. In our gymnasiums and our office areas, our AMC, I mean, there's beautiful sections of that building. How could we retool that building? But it's you're looking at buildings that are from the 20s and 30s and tearing those down and adding new square footage. And then we looking at what would 6th and 7th and 8th grade look at the high school. So you get the 2 facilities, but the cost gets pretty high pretty quickly. So it's always that balancing act of how much can you stand. And I think you're looking at cost now of $250, $300 a square foot. I mean, it's
$325.
$325. I mean, it's incredibly expensive.
And I remember when we built the new high school, in fact, my class was the first class that was here. But how it was presented to the community was that we can't have kids in the middle school, where the middle school is now the old high school, because of all of the dangers and everything there from the asbestos and all that. So they're going to completely tear it down, is what the community was told. But then the middle school and high school were going to be in one building in this new building that was built. But then once it got passed, things changed, and now we still have the middle school, and we're still getting rid of asbestos how many years later? After we deemed that the whole building should be torn down because it's so dangerous. And we're still dealing with the asbestos issue. And so I think, regarding a new school, that was just, the way the school district handled it the last time put a really sour taste in the entire community's mouth. They feel like they were lied to.
Angie, I think you're absolutely right with that. That's 30 years ago.
Yeah,
I don't know what
but
anybody's
we all
doing
still
now.
remember it very clearly.
Right, but nobody
Yeah.
that made those decisions is
Well,
here now.
the high school
Right.
got torn down. People
Yeah.
say the high school's still there. It's not there. It got
No.
torn down.
I guess my
Well, the
point
old
is,
gym
it's-
is, and then also the middle school portion, which still has asbestos. That's kind of the point. Yeah,
There's only like 2 classrooms left of asbestos now.
right, now, yeah. We've been working on it.
No,
whole
but I
district.
mean, 3. But my point is, you're right, and I don't want to debate that, but, I think that we need to realize that there's nothing we're gonna do about that,
Right.
and what we can do is what we should focus.
Well, right, I'm saying is
Focus
that
on
the
this.
community is going to feel like they're, like, okay, you're going to present it one way and then turn around and do something completely different because that's what's happened in the past.
And if that's the mindset, I don't know you'll ever change that mindset on people.
Right, which is, I don't think why
So,
a new school will ever pass a referendum here.
So that's the point I was trying to make, is that if they don't want a new school, it's failed, let's explore a new avenue.
Yep.
Will they accept we're going to renovate the high school, and these are the reasons why? If the cost is similar, yes, it's expensive, I'm not saying it's any less expensive, but if we're going to make something happen, the community has to get on board. And if they don't like that idea, do they like this idea? Should we explore a different avenue that may be successful?
And again, to be clear, I don't know that I would be even discussing an elementary with you if it weren't on the heels of the YMCA discussion.
Right.
Because I see,
I just don't want that to fail because it's being tied in with a new school.
but unless
Either.
it's endorsed, it wouldn't even be
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
strike while the iron's hot, is that the thing?
And to me, it centers around the aquatic center. We're not moving that.
Right.
So it's both of the YMCA, the new school, the renovated school, it needs to be here.
Yeah.
Because that's where the pool is,
Yeah.
and the brand new track, and the brand new baseball field.
Yep.
And the tennis courts. It's got to be here.
So for the sake of time, this is.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just want to get to heating and cooling discussion because we're running out of time.
Direction on this item though?
We're going to continue the conversation, I think. It's not going to be going forward, the action towards the full board is, we're going to continue to discuss this. and-
Why wouldn't you want this to go to the full board?
I agree. It's because it's the proposal for the analysis.
Oh, that part,
That's-
yeah.
yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear that this
Okay.
is about our current buildings and options that we would have within our current,
It's not
not,
exploring.
not.
Yes.
Not even
Not additions.
exploring.
Okay, that part,
not-
yes.
Not
Yeah.
renovations, not new construction, none of that. It's just our current buildings, how they sit and how we could use them most effectively.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
For the proposal, yes, that can go, sorry.
Okay?
Again, it's Monday, I'm sorry.
Were you thinking heating and cooling? Is that what you were on, Angie?
No, I think we kind of got tail off to
Yeah, tell
construction.
construction and moving grades around and stuff like that, and I,
That's
kind of spaced off the proposal, I'm
the
sorry.
next topic.
So,
You know, like,
so.
I like
that would
30
be moved.
second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
Proceed
okay.
for this one.
but for the sake of time, but yes, so the proposal will go to the board. Thank you.
Okay, so heating and cooling system, you had a number of questions that, I guess I don't really know exactly where you were wanting to go with them. I mean, I know the points that you made are, it's hot in the classrooms, cool in office, cool in the core of the building, hot in the outside. How
Yeah.
do we fix that?
Like, and it's not just a little bit of difference. I mean, it's extreme differences. You know, so that's the part that concerns me. It's not like, you know, when it's that much of a variation, that shouldn't be. So and I know that there was problems with that, and help me out with the name of the module that we were looking at. We were replacing every room that controlled the temperature that had gone out. It was up in the vents.
Oh, we have actuators that
Yes,
open and
thank you.
close the valves or the dampers.
Yes.
Um,
So we were
and as we
replacing
go-
those. Yeah.
Well, as we have, I mean, that's just typical, you know, there's always seems to be one or two of those that are acting up in this building alone at different times.
Sure.
Whether they're out of calibration, they went bad, they're stuck, the control system hasn't told them the right signal. There's various reasons why they don't operate the way they should at different times. And we work through those daily
Yeah.
as we can. But the majority of the differences that you're noticing is just based on
How it's
the
set up.
system design.
Yeah.
When this building was built, they decided to only put air conditioning in the core.
I don't know why they ever did that.
So there's literally different air handlers that run, there's an air handler that runs the second floor interior rooms. There's an air handler that runs first floor interior rooms. Then there's one air handler that runs first and second floor perimeter rooms. That air handler doesn't even have air conditioning in it. The rooms that have the control devices in them aren't set up for air conditioning. So you would have to replace that air handler, and then each, you know, it's a booster coil now, it would have to be a VAV, so each room would get a new piece of equipment.
So in last school year, in August, DPI issued their report, and in there it said to focus, that they wanted school districts to focus on their HVAC systems. And that meant heating, cooling, and air exchange. And they directed to school districts to use part of the ESSER funds for those upgrades. They provided additional funding through ESSER, but to do that. I don't know if there's additional, funding through DPI or not now, but I did find some grants that maybe could be useful, and I'll send those to you for updating it. But I think that, our kids and our teachers, our staff, should have a decent work environment. I mean, you wouldn't want to sit in a room
We updated
and,
all the elementaries, so we put air conditioning in
Right.
all of those, redid them so they had a better air exchange. That was,
So then-
that was done just 3 years ago. The paper
Yeah.
reported that the last HVAC work was in 2014, but I think we've done those 3 buildings since then.
Yep, I think it was 17, 18, 19, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah, and so that's been done, and, maybe Angie's right. We need to look at what would it cost to put a air conditioning unit and change all that stuff here in the high school.
Yeah,
And then the next step is the middle school.
we certainly can. I just want to clarify too, there's requirements that we have to provide so much fresh air, and we.
yes, and
certainly-
we talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, and we certainly make sure that we can do that. So we are providing for our staff and students, right?
Right. And I also understand that
The
if we
comfort
provide,
level is a different thing. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that we are providing what we need to for them as far as fresh air.
the bare minimum, because we're trying to keep our energy
Correct.
costs low.
Correct.
So, because the more fresh air you bring in, the higher energy use is
Correct.
just going to go up.
Yeah, but the last couple of years, we've been bringing in
We
more fresh
cranked
air.
up more, and, yeah,
So,
we can, it's
Yeah.
just, it's just, it costs more,
sure,
to be as responsible as we can with tax dollars is why we always try to hold those up.
right, which I understand that as well. But you gotta walk that, that trade-off line. When we have teachers that are roasting in their rooms and then they come out of their room and it's like a breath of fresh air because you just went into the hallway. I mean, I don't think that's right. I think we need to provide a better work environment for our teachers. And then when our staff, our office staff is ready to put space heaters underneath their desks because they're freezing, and the rest of the school is pretty darn warm, I think something's not right with the system and it needs to be addressed.
The system we have right now works the way it was designed to work.
Well, yeah, maybe it does, but I'm saying
Yeah.
it needs to be adjusted so that it works
Well, that's
better,
through
more evenly.
purchasing new equipment,
Right.
okay?
Mhm.
Which we can, but I mean, that comes with the price tag, and it just, if you want to look at a conceptual estimate, if you look at the upgrade that we did at the elementary schools.
I'll send you the links to the grants I found.
Those are 20-some thousand square feet, 22,000 square feet. Our middle school is 160,000 square feet.
Yep.
So, if you take the elementary schools at that time, were like $750,000 a piece. We'd be looking at probably $8 million to do that at middle school. And if we want to, I definitely do it. I'll do as many improvements as we can afford. I'm not against it at all, but it just comes down to a lot of money,
Yeah.
so.
And the grants that I did find, the programs I found were specific to school districts.
That,
Was there any money in the new federal Inflation Reduction Act? I know there is for residential, for heat pumps. And I was just wondering if there's
I would
any of
have
that
to
for
defer to
schools.
Tim on that.
I'm not aware of any due direct for education.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see
I
anywhere.
mean, certainly ventilation, as Angie mentioned, is included in it. That was really emphasized when we had the first round of gear funding. Right in the middle of COVID, they were saying, we got to ventilate, we got to ventilate, we got to ventilate. So they really pushed it then. That is one of the areas that is allowable under
Ventilation, yeah, which is not heating and cooling.
Well, I mean,
Well, it
that's
is
a
and
pretty
isn't.
broad topic.
Correct, Tom? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no specific, so if you don't have funds going into certain rooms, if it's not tied into the system, then that would be included. Does that make sense?
But we have that scenario.
We have ventilation in everyone,
Okay.
yes. We don't have cooling in everyone. So that's, I don't know how that,
Yeah, it was pretty
how
generalized.
that funding would look at that, if they would approve it or disapprove, I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
yeah, I just want to be clear that we do have the systems running the way that they need to. It's just a limitation of the systems that we have,
Okay.
barring a few things of every day, plumbing issues.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Okay, yeah, they're all in there. I was just thinking in our house, we run the furnace fan all the time because the lower level is cooler than the upper level, but you suck all that air back in from all rooms, mix it up again, pump it back up.
yep.
But we can't do that here.
We do in a way, we use utilize free cooling. If the outside air temperature is, we use more outside air than we need to for ventilation standards. To get that cool air in the building, we bring more of that in when we can, so kind of the same theory.
So at night, you suck that air in on hot days.
I'm working on getting the nighttime dialed in because we didn't really have that technology within the program before. Or I don't want to say technology, we didn't have the program written that way before. I'm in the process of getting that dialed in a little better for the nighttime cooling to pre-cool the rooms. But it's a difficult balance of understanding, if you're gonna run a fan all night, is it really going to pay off versus just,
Are we still on
School
time of
day.
use? For
beyond.
time of use for our billing cycle, meaning for like peak hours if we
Yeah,
use
we
it
have
during?
a program that manages our peak draw. So-
Right, but like, do we get charged more if we use energy during the peak hours? Meaning you're on the time of use versus just the standardized rate?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure of all the figures on that, but I
Okay.
can.
Tim, do you know if we're still in the time of use?
Well, yeah, but I mean, do you know the differences, or, I don't know.
I did
off
one
the top of
time.
my head.
I think, it's 6 or 7 times higher than
Yeah,
normal. And that stays with you, that fee stays with you for 12 months. So if you get it for 1 month, you get it for 15 minutes, it stays with you for 12 months.
right, and that's where you use that manager, we're at 400 kilowatts is what we can draw. We have load shedding built in systematically that will turn things off to
Okay.
keep us under that 400, that's load management. So, sorry, I guess maybe we're using a different term, but
Okay,
yeah, it's the same program that does that.
okay,
And yeah, our peak is what's all based off of, so that's why we keep it at 400 or less.
okay,
That's also, when I presented on the LED lighting, I mentioned that, this is projected savings. Keep in mind that during the summer months, or the times that primarily we need air conditioning, that load shedding will keep us at 400. So now that there's less draw from the lights, that just allows us to use
more elsewhere.
more cooling.
Sure,
So it's just a trade-off.
okay,
So we won't experience all of that projected savings in the year, due to that balance that we already have of the load shed.
sure, okay.
So-
All right, so that's just, I guess, we'll continue that discussion and,
So do you want me to explore adding air conditioning everywhere? Try to get some.
well, let me send you
at
those
least
grants and the
estimate for it?
programs that I found, and we can talk if that's going to, if you feel like that would work for the district.
Okay.
I think that would be a good starting place with that. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. So we'll just continue this discussion.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Do teachers complain as much at the middle school as they do here at the high school? Because, part of it is you come out of the hot room and you're into the cool room and it's really noticeable.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody at the middle school, I assume it's just hot when it's
You know,
hot.
I honestly think that at the middle school, I think we get more complaints.
You get more complaints.
Yeah,
Okay.
because, at least here, they can, they go in the hallway, they can feel a little bit of, they'll leave their doors open. They've learned some tricks to do that, or, they try to schedule, let's go to the IMC, or,
Yeah.
they can, there's times of the day where they get relief from the heat. Where at the middle school, it's everywhere, all day.
It's everywhere all day. Okay.
And then it doesn't really cool down that much at night, it just
And that isn't going to help
constant,
student learning either.
so.
You need to talk to tail growers to learn how to utilize your fans to cool.
Yeah, cold at night, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, then we'll just continue the discussion, and our next meeting is Monday, October 10th. Yeah, so with that, we'll adjourn.
Let's call this meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know you have on here to do the behavior and then the seclusion restraint, but I thought the seclusion restraint report shouldn't take that long, and that would leave us so that we don't rush and then not get to it.
I agree. Mary Kay, if you could do roll call, please.
Kristen Mattman,
Here.
Angie Schreiber,
Here.
Kate Horniman. Here. Peggy Siebert.
Here.
Dr. Julie Frey.
Here.
And Dr. Dick Bartle.
And Andy, Mary did ask if he could sit at the table for the meeting. I'm fine with that, so he's going to offer input if he has any. Public comment at all?
Yep, I just.
And like
I just have a question. Because we have 5 board members sitting at this table.
oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't think of that.
I don't think we can have 5.
I did not think of that.
Oh, so you mean I gotta sit over there?
Or I can.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
I didn't.
I'm just questioning whether we can have 5 sitting at this.
It's
Does it matter
been-
at the table or in
it's-
the room?
Official group.
It's been posted though that we would
Posted,
all be together and that no
no
action would be taken.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I'm okay.
posted.
All
Yeah.
right, I
Right,
just
that's how
question.
you
Yeah, that's how it
post
was
it.
Just question.
That's
So
so
that we're all
Yeah.
okay as we
If
move
it-
forward.
Yeah. And like Heidi said, we're gonna just switch the business around. We're gonna do the seclusion and restraint report first, just so that we give it the time that it deserves, because I feel that the other discussion may be a little bit more at length. And so for sake of time, go ahead, Heidi.
Well, it was uploaded, if you have questions, what I included were the numbers from last year and then our procedures that we use following Act 125 and Act 118. And then I just uploaded the document that we used to document seclusion and restraint. So really it's for you to look at and ask any questions about any of that.
Can you give me an example of what seclusion would mean, like what a student would possibly do that would lead to seclusion, and then what, like something that could happen that would lead to restraint?
Well, either one of them, it has to be imminent danger to self or others. So regardless of what's decided, whether it's a restraint or a seclusion. Seclusion basically means that the child cannot leave a space and it is clear of everything that they can hurt themselves with, and you are forcibly keeping them in a room by themselves. There's some nuances to it as far as a seclusion, depending on whether the child wants to leave or doesn't want to leave or force it. But for the sake of the legal, it's when they're by themselves and you are not letting them leave, they are secluded. And there's some regulations with the room, like I said, that can't have anything that can harm the child, so that has to be established. Restraint is anytime you are stopping a child physically from going where they want to go, could be considered a restraint. And so you, again, would only do that if they were in imminent danger of self or others. That's the legal definition of restraint. Again, there's a lot to restraint, but that's basically what restraint is. That you are holding the child and they cannot go where they want to go.
Are the parents notified?
Yes, they have to be. If you look at our process and procedure, it's very specific in the law. So a written report must be sent to the parents within 3 business days of the incident. This was updated in 2020. And basically what that law updated was you can't put a child in a prone position, which means face down. And that was legal before, but it's not legal anymore. The notice and reporting requirements apply to incidences involving law enforcement dues. So while Kyle can, or any police officer on our site can do whatever holds or whatever they need to, they still have to, that's different than what we are able to do. He still has to report it through our system as well if he uses seclusion and restraint, and he knows that. Like I said, prohibits prone restraint, requires school staff to hold a debrief. That was new in the law as well. So we do have a form that they can use, but it's not required. But the requirement to debrief after any incident is there. And then an IPT meeting within 10 school days of the second time a seclusion is used, if they have never had it before. So there are very specifics, and it's in our process and procedures that I did attach exactly what is required. So what we do is it's like a 1, 2, 3 day. So within 1 business day, the parent is notified, phone call, email, in person. I think it should be personal, and that's what they're told. And then 2 days report needs to be done, and then 3 days it needs to be sent out. The law changed where it used to be it just had to be on file. Now we do in 3 days have to send the report out to the parents. And that's what this is, the report. Or a report, but this is the one we use, so.
So if a student, say, in the middle school or the high school gets up in a teacher's face and is screaming and yelling at them, then that would qualify as one of these two?
No.
No?
No, absolutely not. Not
Okay.
unless they were an imminent threat of.
What constitutes an imminent threat?
There's case law that says a guy getting jacked in the nose and getting their nose broke wasn't. So The law is very, you have to have like imminent.
So
threat.
that was deemed not an imminent
Yeah,
threat?
yeah. So we are going to take it if we think that, we have people trained in nonviolent crisis intervention and CPI. You have to have at least one person in every school who is trained, and we have more than that, that are on a safety team that can be called. Our special ed staff are trained as well. And there are nuances that we talk about with regards to when we would make that decision. For example, a kindergartner running out into a street. We're going to restrain them. It's still restrained. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. And that's what we try to train our staff at. It's not that there's something wrong doing a restraint. It just needs to be reported. We need to make sure that it's reported and documented by law. So we train so that people, number one, can try to de-escalate situations so that if somebody gets up in your face, you can de-escalate.
And that's a really important distinction that I think it's at what you're saying. If we can de-escalate that, it's a win for everybody to avoid, we do whatever we can to avoid secluding and restraining.
So high school students, you're not going to restrain. You're going to say, leave then, and we'll call the police, because I worked with some really volatile, big guys, and there was no way I was going to restrain you with a 2-person restraint. And so there's different ways that you use it, but it's something that's pretty dramatic when you do have to restrain a child, from everybody involved, the person restraining the child being restrained. So it's not something we take lightly.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying I take it lately. I'm just wondering like what constitute that. Okay, so, all right, go ahead.
My question is how these numbers compare to like years past.
An interesting thing that I noted, and I think maybe it has to do with COVID or coming back, is we had more students. They're pretty similar. If you take COVID out of it's pretty similar, other than the number of students who were restrained. Usually that's, maybe 10, 11, 12, and it was 22. So 22 different kids last year were restrained. But the number of incidences weren't necessarily much higher. So maybe they were restrained once or twice or whatever. But I found that to be an interesting, that was 22 students versus 8, 14, 9 in the last few years. So I found that to be interesting because there were more regular ed students without IEPs that were restrained, and they were at the younger grades. And so we know that we had an influx of kids who were struggling last year coming in kindergarten for 2nd grade. And I know I trust our staff and I trust our principals. They have been trained in CPI. They take this very seriously as well. And there's nuances. And they'll call me and they'll say, this is what happened. Is this considered a restraint? And I'll be like, yeah, that's a restraint. It didn't mean that you did anything wrong, but it's a restraint, so that we can accurately document. And so our system is they document, they take care of these, they send them to Jenny, and that's how you get this report. Jenny, my admin assistant, always compiles this so that we can look at over time how we're doing. I would say we're definitely, obviously we want the numbers to come down, but where they were before when I got here, we weren't even tracking it. They were tracking, there were padded rooms still. And we do have seclusion rooms that we will use because legally we have to have a room that a child can go to that doesn't have anything that can harm them, and it can't lock. So we, do what we have to do, but I would say they're used less and less. And the principals are here too, so if you have any questions for them, whether it's for this or when we get into the behavior, while we have summaries and stuff, they will answer any direct questions too. So if at any time they want to jump in, they can.
Anybody else have anything on this topic?
Okay.
All right, we will move on then. Discipline committee report.
So Donna's going to do a little activity with y'all, and then we'll get started.
All right, so it's hard to sit around the table, so I'll just stand next to I wanted to start with a real life example that many of us may have experience with. So you don't have to raise your hand, but if you want to, you can. How many of you have sped? Maybe, we're speeding, you got pulled over, and or you got a ticket. Well, I will admit, I have sped, I often, sometimes you just do. So one thing I'd like to do really quickly, and it will only take a few minutes, is to do a little activity with you on that. So what are some reasons why you may speed or you may get pulled over for speeding? So what are some reasons? Like seriously, just shout them out, I'll try and write as fast.
You're late for a meeting.
How many over were you?
Keep them coming.
It feels good to go fast.
Annie!
I guess we're running on the table. Not using cruise control, as I always do, due to the fact.
Not paying attention.
Yeah.
What?
Remind me not to ride with you.
I just mean to the speed if I don't have my cruise control set.
Anxious to get where I'm going.
It's gonna blame kids in the back seat. I mean, I have to go there.
So other distractions.
Distractions. Mine are.
Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you have to go to the bathroom. What else?
My speedometer's broke. It's not my
Maybe
fault.
you don't know the speed, either
or you don't
of
know the speed.
what the speed is or your speedometer broke. Maybe you're following someone. Because they're going fast, right? Maybe someone's following you.
Yeah, floating
Grab your tail, right?
Everybody else is. Well, seriously, you've driven in the last years.
Okay, so those are just, we could probably keep going. We did this activity in our responsive classrooms training in Minnesota, and it was really eye-opening. Some people put like labor, okay, you're going into labor. Yep, you probably might be speeding, but there's an emergency, right? But the other thing is that the reasons that we get pulled over may also be the reasons students misbehave. So, yes, we know that speeding is wrong. We have been taught to follow the speed limit. Not that it makes it right for us to speed, not that it makes it right for students to misbehave, but it happens. And there could be a reason behind it. It could just be because we want to, right? We want to go fast. We like how it feels. Whatever. And it could be that there's not a reason why students misbehave, but there could also be a reason. So I guess I talked to Julie as soon as we did this training, and I was like, I found that we did this activity, it was really eye-opening to me, and I wanted to kind of bring it to everyone so that we can reflect on that too, because it's really important to realize that students may misbehave for a lot of different reasons. So I know we're going to go into answering some questions and talking through, but I just wanted to kind of bring us to light that there may be reasons why students misbehave. So that's my activity.
Thank you.
So what you have, and the administrators are here. Rachel's gone because she was out sick today, but I think everybody else is here. Wanted to be here to answer the questions, but we also have a summary here too, and I can certainly read the summaries, and then if you have specific questions, we were trying to see how we could be the most efficient and effective as we're answering these questions, so that each principal didn't get all 10 questions, and then another principal. We want to be efficient. So it's up to you. You have them in front of you if you have specific questions, or I could read the summaries if you would like, and then you could ask questions. And for the people, are we recording? Oh, okay. So if you want me to do that.
Let's have you just read through the summary quick,
Okay.
just to set a basis for
Yeah.
questions.
So the first question is, what is the impact the current strategies have on the other kids in the room? For example, how much instructional time is being spent on following a flow chart or entering data? And we answer these questions based on what we thought the question was asking. If it's not if whoever where the question came from, you can also clarify when we're done, but we did it based on what we thought the question was asking. The safety and learning environment for each and every student is our priority. The current strategies that we are employing in the district are based on best practice research and our collective experience as teachers and leaders in the schools. We are continually reflecting and building upon our systems of support in order to bring consistency and build the capacity of our teachers. The goal is to maximize instructional time in a proactive way, teaching and reteaching expected behaviors, employing interventions when appropriate, and collectively working together to strategize to support the learning of students. Data collection is an integral part of how we make decisions, reflecting and changing as necessary based on student needs.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up just a second, because while you were reading this. So were these questions brought back to each school and their teams collectively, or are these just the answers from the principals?
They were from the administrators because that's what the directive was. However, they're all on teams. They lead their teams, so I would think that their perspective is a collective answer. But that's how we answered the questions. Or they answered, I just took notes.
I didn't take it to the team.
Yeah.
Took it, Teal and I, we collectively discussed and then shared out with all of us, but I did not feel it was directed for us to take it directly to a team with those specific questions.
And some of them were directly about administration.
Okay, so it might be my misinterpretation from Danny, but I thought that these were supposed to go back to the teams that we set at the end of last year as our progression of identifying the issues.
Well, number 2 says, do the principals in our buildings believe the following statement? So that's one. And then there was another question, staff feel they can't do anything, any feedback on this? The one question that had, do the principals think specific details? Are the principals aware of? So all of these questions seem to be targeted towards the administration, so that's why we took it that way.
I guess it would be interesting to just to see what others on the team had to say as well. Not just having the administration answering, saying, yes, we think, we do this and we do that. It'd be interesting to see what everybody else, if everybody else is on the same pages.
I would, if you want, I would reframe the questions, some of these questions, because they were directed to principals and administration.
Okay, we'll go through it as is, and then I will discuss with Danny where our miss was on that.
I did find his original email, if that helps. It was August 18th, and Danny did email principals only and me. Hope you had, anyway, for the meeting, have prepared the following answers. So it doesn't indicate that they should go back to their teams.
Okay, so through this discussion, let's determine what questions need to be brought back to the team then.
Yep.
Okay, so the first question I would say, in general, needs to go back to the team to see if the teachers and the staff can have a better answer, because I personally feel like, although the information provided did not answer the question, as how much time are teachers taking away from instruction by handling these issues? So that's a question I would like brought back to the.
Well, is it handling the discipline issues or putting in documentation into a flow chart? Because that's how the second
I'd
question
say
is.
both.
Because the flow chart doesn't get necessarily done during classroom time. That gets done later or during prep or whatever.
Correct, but prep time that could be used not dealing with discipline issues.
Okay.
So 2 separate questions. How much impact current studies have on other kids in the room? So pulling away from them teaching the other, however many it is in the room, to deal with an issue. And then also, how much time are they spending outside of the classroom entering data and following their progression?
And we're just starting the year, so you're looking for recent data, like few days of school.
Well, by the time we meet next time will be next month, so we'll be 2 months and a half, 2 months in. So
I feel like that question could even be based on we've been discussing discipline for months, and they could even base it off the end of last year. Have there been any huge changes that would change their answer from this year to last?
Well, we're always employing new and better strategies collectively and collaboratively so that their classrooms
Depends on the
are
mix
running.
of kids.
Yep.
and-
It sounds like we're asking for time study, to be totally honest. I don't know where these questions came from.
I don't either.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I asked Dane to send them to me a while ago and I got them, but I didn't know who made them up or where they came from. But it sounds like we're asking for a time study, and if that's true, that's fine. But then maybe we want to say, like after the honeymoon period from October to November, we ask a random selection of staff to do a time study. Because I think that would give us the accurate information that we're looking for. If I'm hearing you saying what we're looking for, how much time is being taken away from other activities to do these things, then I think that's more of a representation.
And I would really, I like how you said other activities. I don't know how I feel about time study or not, but other activities versus other children, because at any given time, any child in a classroom can be not following the rules. And so when it says the other kids, I struggle with that. But when you're talking about instructional time for all students, then that makes sense to me. So,
Can I give you an
to be
example?
clear.
I guess an example that I think of is a classroom and the teacher has to repeat the same thing over and over and over and over, and they can't move forward with the lesson because they have to keep repeating themselves because the class is so unruly, and,
I get that, I just don't realistically think back to May, I think you're gonna get a skewed version of things. Because if you think about even, if you see something on the street, you see an accident, you're asked to repeat it, you can have 4 people see the same accident and repeat the same thing. And now we're asking them to go back to like April and May and think about those things. We can, that's fine, but I think we'll have a more accurate idea if we ask them to do it as it's happening. But if we want that information immediately, then yeah, we can ask them what they thought last spring. I just don't know. I don't know, maybe it'll be more accurate, maybe it'll be skewed one way or the other.
sure, I can appreciate what you're saying.
Maybe some of this, as we go on, would be helpful too, and then we can go back, or you can, because some of the questions that we will be answering also will give you some insight into classroom strategies and environment and responsibility and all of that. So I don't know if we can go through them.
I guess the way that I see the first question being asked is, yes, we have new teachers and seasoned teachers. Seasoned teachers, since they've come on board, I feel like years ago, they just handled behavior on their own, and now we're implementing different behavior strategies. Do these teachers feel like it is efficient? That is the bottom line question. Are these behavioral strategies efficient? Because the feedback that I get is that they are not.
Same.
So that is the bottom line question that.
And that's from
Right.
parents too. It's the community as a whole that,
I'm struggling with that.
So, okay, number 2.
And we'll get to that, and if people have issues with that, what they can do to help themselves as well, like, to be a part of the solution and problem solve around that, so. Number 2, the principals in our buildings believe the following statement: there is no such thing as bad behaviors, it just means the student's needs are not being met. These are not mutually exclusive. You can have behavior that violates a classroom or school rule, and the student's needs aren't being met, or the student doesn't have skill yet. All behavior is communication and getting to the root will reduce the unexpected behavior, which is our goal. We have high expectations which are reinforced and taught as much as necessary. By having the previously mentioned common expectations, it will be conducive to reaching the goal of responsible and respectful behavior. The goal of discipline is to teach students to be in control of themselves and to choose socially and morally responsible behavior because it's the right thing to do, not because of fear of punishment or hope of reward. The last quote came from Response Classroom. So mutually exclusive means it doesn't have to be either or. You can have a behavior that is not acceptable, and you can have a kid who doesn't have a skill or does have an unmet need. So.
so in other words, you answered that, yes.
No.
No?
There are behaviors that are not acceptable. And there are students who don't have their needs met and, or don't have skills. They're not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
You don't have to have one or the other. They can be both. Because there are behaviors that are unacceptable. We have them every day. And then they deal with those behaviors based on the circumstances. Whether that be in the classroom, pulling them out of the classroom, getting parents involved, doing a restorative circle, whatever that might be. In schools, detention, out of school suspension. There's lots of different, a range of consequences that might happen. So, I mean, am I saying that okay, principals?
I can't hear everything you guys are saying, to be honest with you.
Come on,
so
then. Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. I really wanna
Yeah,
down.
come on down.
Well, if you can hear,
If you can hear, you can stay, but
So I'll make this.
Pull up the chair.
we got a big table.
Yeah, you can hear, not good, that's
So Heather, how would you personally answer number 2? Do you believe there is the following statement, there is no such thing as bad behavior, it just means students' needs are not being met?
just what we have right here collectively. I mean, there's, just like kind of with the, speeding, there's things that we do wrong for whatever reason. I'm not really sure always what the reason is. I mean, there's behaviors that are inappropriate. Today we probably made, between Teal and I, probably made 7 different contacts with families and talked about some things from a kid accidentally having a lighter, and he told the teacher that he accidentally brought it to school, to another kid saying some inappropriate things to another student, and talking through that with the student and coming up with a plan, like what does that look like for that student? Is it going to be, is there a trigger? Are we using our resources appropriately? We have key behavior specialist Amy Reichel and Mrs. Pizarro. I think a lot of times teachers do want to handle it themselves, and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they would do like a partner teaching conversation. But sometimes a kid maybe just needs a break out of the room, but sometimes it's hard for a teacher to allow that too, because they want the student in there, right? And we want the students in there as well. Sometimes there's, we've been working with John, our new psychologist, and a lot of it could be, if you're not able to regulate, then at a certain point in time, and if you need a break, then you need that break in order for them to get the learning that they need for themselves and also for the teacher to teach. So there has to be some give and take, and we're trying to work that out for some of our students. I mean, it's a day-to-day kind of thing, but then obviously, we had students do that, they had a detention today. They're probably gonna have it the rest of the week, because we need some time to think through it. But we don't always want to take them out of that recess either, because they need that energy break too. So we're trying to figure out, like, at what point in time does the student talk with the administrator, meet with the teacher or teachers, and then we always try to contact parents right away. Especially like right now, like we haven't exhausted everything yet, right? And some of our students are coming back from different behavior situations, like maybe they were at Journeys. Well, what were they doing at maybe this facility, and we're transitioning them back? It takes some time to figure that out. We don't, I mean, if a student goes to Journeys, it's because they're focusing on their behaviors. But then they're also behind academically. So you can't do both at the same time. So some of our kids that we're working with that are starting to kind of bubble up right now, a lot of them currently just don't have that regulation, so we're trying to figure out what that looks like each hour, which grade level they're in, who are the supports that we can have. Can I sit in with Dave, and maybe that helps that student be able to stay in there for math a little bit longer and not blurt out. We're trying to kind of manipulate some of those pieces and figure out what works. I think the high school is doing the same thing, and I think the elementary, they're kind of doing the same thing right now too with a lot of the students. So it's not like it's one piece fits all, and I don't know, the term of bad behavior, I don't know, I guess it just depends upon the way you look at it, right? Like, there's something going wrong, so what's wrong and what can we do to help figure out what the problem is? We don't want this young student like continually swearing and making inappropriate comments to disrupt the learning, so we have to figure out what that looks like. But the goal really is, hopefully, we can have all of our students in all the classes. without disruption, but there's going to be disruption depending upon like the different situations. Sometimes we see it, sometimes medication's involved. Sometimes kids are taking medication, sometimes they're not. We had a student last week Friday, the 30th day, their prescription ran out, but they can't get the new prescription till day 31. In the middle of the day when you're at school. So you have to like get that information from the parent. What can we do to help strategize and support the student on those particular days? Because sometimes it's just a bubble up. There's so many pieces that go to this, it's crazy.
Extremely complex, yeah.
But it's really trying to figure out what that looks like for each student and what does the staff need. So like I said, sometimes staff is like, we push kids sometimes to this situation because we want them in there that badly. But there has to be some give and take, and there has to be you have to nurture that. You have to nurture it with the adults, and you have to nurture it with the parents and the students. And when we all sit down together, we tend to figure it out the best that we can. And then we have what we call like a plan. So high school has like a productivity plan, or whatever that support plan looks like for a student. These are students, it could be with an IEP, it could be students that don't have IEPs. And some of them are situational, like there's some kids that come back on a Monday, their weekends were not real great. So then like we can kind of figure out what can we do to help check in and connect with this student if we see that pattern. So then we use like what's called ABC charting sometimes. What's the antecedent? What caused the behavior? Is there a consequence? It all kind of falls into the piece, and there's just no easy one answer. And we talk a lot about, we ask our teachers, like what do they need, and do they have any suggestions, or maybe what's working in my classroom isn't working in Trina's classroom? And why is that? Is there something different that I could do? Does the student have a stand-up desk versus a regular seated desk? Is it flexible seating? Do they have like a 5-minute break in between? Like we see a lot of our kids struggle during a 90-minute or 80-minute period block. We have ELA and math for that long. So we have natural breaks for all of our students, but sometimes some students need a couple more breaks within that time. Send them to the office. Give them a fake letter to take to the office. I mean, there's just all kinds of little tricks to the trade that we try to figure out. Nothing is perfect, but those are just some things that we go through every single day.
So if I'm struggling with somebody in my class, do you guys have like pupil service meetings where you have like student support meetings?
Yep.
And then does a plan come out of that? Okay, so then if that doesn't work for so long, then what?
Every student's different.
Take a look at the plan and what's working, what's not working. We bring in school counselors, we bring in John, or Megan, whoever our school psychologist is. We bring in wraparound services, and many of our students have wraparound services where they're coming in from neurocentric healthcare, or they have like a mentor that comes in.
More resources
like
absolutely.
Yeah, we're constantly meeting and trying to plan, and then like today even we met and we talked about, okay, it's good to have a lead teacher. If you're in 4th and 5th grade now, you have a partner teacher. If you're in 6th grade and up, you have multiple teachers. So everybody has to get the information, but you can't get everybody at a meeting all the time. So then who's going to be that lead teacher that helps us connect the pieces as to what does it really look like in the classroom? I'm not in the classroom all day long. My age isn't going to carry as much as a classroom teacher, right? Like I might have some ideas or some strategies, but the classroom teachers have to have input. So there's a variety of ways that we do that through Google Docs, through actual face-to-face meetings, following up through emails. There's a variety of ways to do it. But then we also have supports that go along with it, like our counselors are very involved. Then we have 2 support system people. We have Amy Reichel, who's working with 4th and 5th grade this year, and then Emily Pizarro in 6th and 7th grade. And we feel it's going to be a piece because before one of those ladies, Amy Reichel, did all 4 grades. Well, that's a lot of kids to help manage with 2 counselors when they're in classrooms half the time, right? So, like, how do we manage these support plans? You can put a plan together, but it's not going to hold any weight unless you have people checking in. Is this working? How did it go today? Okay, maybe we have this plan figured out. But typically, there's some bumps in the road, and you have to have plan A, plan B, plan C.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, everything you just said is designed, because the majority of things a classroom teacher can address, and, it's that universal. It's for the outstanding behaviors that a teacher redirect isn't helping. Then we have, a plethora of things to try to help teachers, because we don't want anybody to feel like there is no support. So do we have 1 billion supports to try? Yes. But it's not automatically, we don't automatically have a specialist check in and the student support team. It's only when we know that the teacher needs our assistance.
And we do have additional, the behavior strategist positions this year we did fill. So we have Lynn Walters, who is working with some at the K-3 and at 4-5, mainly 4th grade, to help support teachers, especially some of our new teachers who either were hired late or don't have licenses or are getting licensed, which has been beneficial as well. We also are starting Responsive Classroom at K-3 and 4th grade. And then Restored Practices, just starting to implement and learn more about that. So when we talk about strategies, like I said, a lot of this is universal because of the fact that it's not just a few kids anymore. It's not the same. We're not talking about just students with IEPs or behavior. We're talking about, we have about 80% poverty in our elementary schools, and with that comes along a lot of different things that families might struggle with. And so it's not just about a few kids anymore. That's why it can't just be a simple answer for a few kids. It really does have to be about how do we best support the teachers in the classroom with the best things that we can, and then provide them layers of support when they can't do it, or they're struggling with something, or a student, or with just implementing what it is that we're asking them to implement. So definitely multi-layers.
So, thank you. My question is, when you're creating the individual plans for these students, how is that creating any kind of consistency throughout the school district? So what I mean by that is if you have a first grader that's acting out and you create one plan for them because of what you deem as the root cause that's going on in their life versus fourth grader versus an eighth grader, right? And they all have different plans. So how is that creating consistency? Because there's numerous studies I'll use the example of kids that have ADHD, right? They perform better in very structured environments where it's black and white. You do this, this happens. You do this, this happens. Now, if you start making all these different plans and meetings and, specific to this one, this kid, and then specific to this student and this student, how is that consistent?
Well, we use the
I can
grid,
respond to
which
that.
is our
So we have a little first grader at East, and he was kind of struggling with the transition back into the school setting.
Mm-hmm.
Consider the advice from Megan Murphy, where you try to focus on one or two behaviors and work on those. His was staying in the classroom. So the classroom teacher actually talked to the special ed teacher to get some advice. The student's not special ed. And worked up a little incentive for him to earn a sticker throughout the day. It's 5 stickers. Those accumulate throughout the week, and then there's a little reward. That worked.
Sure.
That worked for him. And so I can think of another first grader that probably would not work for him. So you have to find out what is going to be motivating for that student, what's going to connect with that student. Sometimes you're even, every time you're connecting with the parent to get their input and their advice. And so to say one strategy, one approach works
But you're keeping both students in the class. You're keeping both students in the class.
Correct.
Right. So that's the consistency part. So what I'm saying is that if we create a plan, let's say one of those two, right? If they act out, then they are, can,
Get their 5-minute break.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Something like that. Then that's not, and then the other student doesn't, even though they're not on the same plan, that's not consistent. That's not keeping them in the classroom. I agree with the rewards. You have to find out what works for each student. However, the consistency part of it is you have to have the same rule for everybody. If you break that rule, then the consequences of this happen. Or if you follow this rule, then your reward is the stickers or, whatever. But you don't take them out of, one child isn't allowed to leave the classroom for 5 minutes for a break versus the other kids have to stay in that classroom.
So
I
I would
disagree, because
add a
if
little-
he needs that,
Well, and I was just gonna say, like, for consistency, at the elementary, we do have take a break spots in every classroom. So that is consistent. Like, we try to keep them in the room to take a break.
Sure.
However, just like the activity I did for speeding, every time you speed, you don't get a ticket.
Right, but if you do,
But
then you
sometimes you
accept
get
that.
pulled over and you get a warning as well. It's
Right.
not consistent. And then we also want to look at what the root cause is. Why are these students misbehaving? And at North, I can't speak to everywhere else, but like at North, we do look at the BEST screener. So we have that screener, it provides us interventions, just like FastBridge provides us interventions for academics. The BEST screener provides us interventions for behavior. And we utilize those interventions based on what the student scores were and where their needs are for that student. So it has to be individualized. Just like FastBridge, for an intervention, you may have an intervention in, letter sounds, if that's what the student needs. So for the BEST screener, one of the interventions could be praise. Maybe that student needs that positive praise. Maybe it's timeout. Timeout is one of the interventions in the BEST screener. So it is individualized. And also, like when we're talking about what some procedures might be, it may look different at each level. Like at North, we have instructional assistants, we have a behavior instructional assistant. And if there is a large behavior that's disrupting the whole class, the student is uncontrollable, they have a walkie-talkie and they call for support. A support staff member comes in and either tries to, support the student within the classroom or may have to take the student out. But our goal is to keep them in there because if they're not in there, they're also not even hearing any of the learning that's happening. And so our goal would be to try and keep them in. However, there are numerous times that we have to take the student out to support the student, to support the teacher, and to support the other students so that they, can learn as well.
And what was the name of that study?
The BEST screener?
BEST?
BEST, yes.
So how often then are other children playing off of that? So if they know that so-and-so does this so many times, he gets to go walk down to the office, so now I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna go down to the office, or whatever, that, how often do we see that happening, or is it not?
I can't speak to exactly how often that happens, but at the elementary, there is a lot of copycat behavior. Not just to get out of the classroom, but if a student is struggling and is seeking attention, then now you have 5 kids seeking attention because now they want your attention too. And so it's hard to say if they're trying to get out of the classroom or if they want, but as the year progresses, they also start to understand what that student needs is not what I need, but we try to provide, all students what they need.
Right.
I mean, we have even that.
We'll go back to
I want to follow up on that too. Because you see the other side of that too. When I've been impressed on how other kids have responded when a student is struggling to self-regulate. And I think a lot of it has to do with how the teacher, the class teacher, talks about how we're supporting everybody in the classroom. And some students need more support, and some students need support in different ways. And it's first graders. They can be very understanding and empathetic and know that a classmate of theirs needs something more than what, they may be receiving. So you see, we have these themes each month where we're trying to teach kids. They're living it and responding to it, and I think a lot of it has to do with